Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Quiet month-end equities drift higher in dull trade analysis. http ntvforex.com News ID 52DDDC 8/31/2020 10:32:15 am Notes Observations Quiet month-end trading as UK off for bank holiday. Plethora of EU final GDP readings and AUG inflation data fails to spark price action. Asia-China AUG manufacturing PMI government official registered its sixth straight expansion 51.0 v 51.2 Japan July preliminary industrial production registered its highest MOM reading since 1978. MOM 8.0% v 5.0% EOY 16.1% v 17.5% E. Japan July retail sales missed expectations. 3.3% v 2.5% EYY 2.8% v 1.7% E. Japan LDP party reported to decide to hold leadership vote on September 14. South Korea July industrial production missed expectations. 1.6% v 2.5% EYY 2.5% v 2.0% E. Berkshire Hathaway unit acquired 5% passive stakes in each of the 5 leading Japan trading companies: Itochu, Marubeni, Mitsubishi Corp., Mitsui Amp-Co and Sumitomo Corp. Coronavirus total global cases 25,143,423 3.2% versus Friday. Total death 845.4k 1.8% versus Friday. Europe UK Treasury officials said to be drawing up plans for a 30B increase of taxes on wealthy businesses, pensions and foreign aid to plug a hole in the nation's finances caused by the coronavirus crisis. Chancellor wants to use the autumn budget to start repairing public finance. Under proposals that are due to form the centerpiece of the budget in November, the government is planning to raise both capital gains tax and corporation tax. Senior Tories and business chiefs have told Chancellor Sunak that putting up taxes on businesses and pensions to pay huge coronavirus costs could damage the economy. UK Brexit negotiator Frost said to have signalled to EU's Barnier that he'll recommend Britain leave without a trade deal unless the EU dropped its demands that the UK aligned with EU rules on state aid. NBSP speakers fixed income FX commodities Iratum equities indices STOXX 6000.52% at 370.72, FTSE closed, DAX 0.72% at 13,126.85, CAC 41.04% at 5,054.87, IBEX 35.43% at 7,164.00, FTSE MIB 0.94% at 20,027.50, SME 0.57% at 10,222.23, S&P 500 futures 0.26%. Market focal points. Key themes: European indices open higher and continued in the green as the session progressed. Better performing sectors include energy and utilities, financials and healthcare sectors. Among underperformers, UK closed for holiday. Immune to be acquired by Nestle. Suez to study offer from Veolia for stake in company. Earnings expected in the upcoming U.S. session include Zoom Communications and Regis. NBSP equities consumer discretionary Nestle Nesen.ch 1% acquisition Energy Suez SEV.fr 19%, Veolia VIE.fr 3.5% deal. NBSP speakers Spain Econ Min Calvino reiterated view that domestic economy was already recovering from the pandemic and added that Q3 GDP growth was seen over 10%. IMF chief Georgieva stated that she saw a revival in trade. Japan LDP ruling party official Ishiba no need to radically change Abenomics stimulus policy including monetary easing. Did not believe it was sustainable to reduce corporate tax, adopt zero interest rates, weaken the yen currency and curb wage hikes. Did not think that a weak JPY currency yen was better. Interest rates should return to appropriate levels eventually. Note the last rate hike by BOJ was back in 1989. Did not believe fiscal spending would cause hyperinflation. Still have room for further fiscal measures. China Foreign Ministry spokesperson refuted claims by India and stressed that its border troops never crossed the line. In close communication with India over the situation. Note earlier India Army statement noted that it had thwarted a transgression by China on the Pangong PSO Lake Fed's Kashkari Dove, FOMC voter no urgency to raise rates. NBSP currencies fixed income. The USD ended AUG on a steady note in thin holiday trading, but the month saw the greenback suffer heavy losses against numerous pairs as the markets shifted to the Fed's new inflation policy framework. EUR USD hovering around the 1.19 level in quiet trade, with the 1.20 handle remaining the key psychological resistance. USD JPY bounced off Friday's low in the aftermath of PM Abe's announced resignation. Dealers believing that Japan's next leader would maintain the course on the Abenomics economic program. NBSP economic data. NL Netherlands July retail sales YY 12.0 v 10.5% prior. No Norway July credit indicator growth YY 4.6% v 4.5% prior. 5 Finland June final trade balance A 0.2 b v A 0.2 b prelims. A South Africa July M3 money supply YY 10.5% v 11.1% prior. Private sector credit YY 5.1% v 5.6% EDK Denmark Q2 preliminary GDP QQ 6.9% v 2.0% prior. YY 8.2% v 0.2% prior. DK Denmark July unemployment rate seasonally adjective 4.8% v 5.1% prior. Gross unemployment rate 5.2% v 5.4% prior. CH Swiss July real retail sales YY 4.1 v 3.3% prior. To Germany AUG CPI Saxony 0.3% v 0.5% prior. YY 0.1% v 0.2% prior. ES Spain AUG preliminary CPI 0.0% v 0.1% v 0.9% prior. YY 0.6% v 0.6% ES Spain AUG preliminary CPI EU harmonized 0.1% EV 1.6% prior. YY 0.6% v 0.6% EU Hungary June average gross wages YY 15.6% v 9.0% ETR Turkey Q2 GDP QQ 11.0% v 13.6% EYY 9.9% v 10.5% ETR Turkey July trade balance $2.7 BV $2.7 BSE Sweden June non-manual workers wages YY 1.7% v 1.5% prior. TH Thailand July current account balance $1.0 BV $0.3 billion prior. Overall balance of payments BOP $2.7 billion v $3.5 billion prior. Trade account balance $4.1 billion v $2.3 billion prior. Exports YY 11.9% v 24.6% prior. Imports YY 25.4% v 18.2% prior. To Germany AUG CPI Hesse 0.3% v 0.8% prior. YY 0.3% v 0.1% prior. To Germany AUG CPI Bavaria 0.0% v 0.5% prior. YY 0.1% v 0.0% prior. IT Italy Q2 final GDP QQ v 12.4% EYY v 17.3% ECH Swiss weekly total sight deposits 701.6 billion Swiss francs v 700.0 b prior. Domestic sight deposits 636.5 b v 634.2 b prior. No Norway Central Bank Norges September daily FX purchases 2.0 billion Norwegian kroner v 2.0 b prior. PL Poland Q2 final GDP QQ 8.9% v 8.9% prelim YY 8.2% v 8.2% prelim. CZ Czech July M2 money supply YY 10.0% v 9.5% prior. ES Spain June current account balance A 2.0 b v A 0.8 b prior. To Germany AUG CPI North Rhine-Westphalia 0.0% v 0.7% prior. YY 0.2% v 0.2% prior. PT Portugal AUG CPI 0.2% v 1.3% prior. YY 0.0% v 0.1% prior. PT Portugal AUG CPI EU harmonized 0.2% v 2.0% prior. YY 0.2% v 0.1% prior. IT Italy AUG preliminary CPI 0.3% v 0.3% EYY 0.5% v 0.5% EIT Italy AUG preliminary CPI EU harmonized 1.3% v 1.1% EYY 0.5% v 0.3% EB Belgium Q2 final GDP QQ 12.1% v 12.2% prelim YY 14.4% v 14.5% prelim GR Greece June retail sales value YY 7.3% v 5.1% prior retail sales volume YY 6.9% v 5.3% prior is Iceland July final trade balance ISK 11.6 b v 12.4 b prelim is Iceland Q2 GDP QQ 9.1% v 5.7% prior YY 9.3% v 1.7% prior Cyprus Q2 final GDP QQ 11.6% v 11.6% prelim YY 11.9% v 11.9% prelim in India July 8 infrastructure key industries 9.6% TV 12.9% prior fixed income issuance No Norway sold 2.0 billion Norwegian kroner versus 2.0 billion Norwegian kroner indicated in 6-month bills average yield 0.01% v 1.40% prior bid to cover 2.84x v 1.96x prior NBSP looking ahead to Germany OG CPI Baden-Württemberg No ESTV 0.1% prior YY No ESTV 0.3% prior to Germany OG CPI Brandenburg % v 0.8% prior YY v 0.1% prior 0530 SL3 Lanka OG CPI YY 4.3% EV 4.2% prior 0530 ZA South Africa announces details of upcoming IL bond sale held on Fridays 0600 PT Portugal Q2 final GDP third reading QQ No ESTV 13.9% prelim YY No ESTV 16.3% prelim 0645 US Daily Libor fixing 0725 BR Brazil Central Bank Weekly Economists Survey 0800 to Germany OG preliminary CPI 0.0% EV 0.5% prior YY 0.1% EV 0.1% prior 0800 to Germany OG preliminary CPI EU harmonized 0.0% EV 0.5% prior YY 0.1% EV 0.0% prior 0800 ZA South Africa July trade balance ZAR No ESTV 46.6b prior 0800 in India Q2 GDP YY 19.2% EV 3.1% prior GVA YY 19.8% EV 3.0% prior 0800 ES Spain Debt Agency Tesoro announcement of size on upcoming issuance 0830 CA Canada July Industrial Product Price No ESTV 0.4% prior Raw Materials Price Index No ESTV 7.5% prior 0830 BR Brazil July Primary Budget Balance BRL 99.4 BV 188.7 B prior Nominal Budget Balance No ESTV 210.2 B prior Net Debt to GDP Ratio No ESTV 58.1% prior 0900 FR France Debt Agency AF to sell a 4.35.5 B in 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month bills 0900 CL Chile July Industrial Production YY No ESTV 2.6% prior Manufacturing Production YY 10.5% EV 8.3% prior Total Copper Production No ESTV 472.2 K tons prior 0900 CL Chile July Retail Sales YY 20.0% EV 24.0% prior Commercial Activity YY No ESTV 15.9% prior 0900 in India announces details of upcoming bond sale held on Fridays 0945 EU ECB Weekly QE Bond Buying Update 1000 MX Mexico July Net Outstanding Loans MXN No ESTV 4.932 T prior 1030 US AUG Dallas Fed Manufacturing Activity 0.0 EV 3.0 prior 1100 CO Colombia July National Unemployment Rate No ESTV 19.8% prior Urban Unemployment Rate No ESTV 24.9% prior 1100 CO Colombia July Exports No ESTV $2.3 billion prior 1400 CO Colombia Central Bank Interest Rate Decision expected to cut overnight rate by 25 bps to 2.00% 1500 AR Argentina June wages No ESTV 0.1% prior 1600 US Weekly Crop Progress Report 1830 Australia AUG Performance of Manufacturing Index No ESTV 53.5 prior 1845 NZ New Zealand Q2 Terms of Trade Index QQ No ESTV 0.7% prior 1845 NZ New Zealand July Building Permits No ESTV 0.5% prior 1900 KR South Korea Q2 Final GDP QQ 3% EV 3.3% Prelim YY 2.9% EV 2.9% Prelim 1900 Australia AUG Final PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 53.9 Prelim 1930 Australia ANZ Roy Morgan Weekly Consumer Confidence Index No ESTV 92.7 prior 1930 JP Japan July Jobless Rate 3.0% EV 2.8% prior Job to Applicant Ratio 1.08 EV 1.11 prior 1950 JP Japan Q2 Company Profits YY No ESTV 28.4% prior Company Sales YY No ESTV 7.5% prior 2000 Australia AUG Core Logic House Price Index No ESTV 0.8% prior 2000 KR South Korea AUG Trade Balance $3.7 BV $4.3 billion prior Exports YY 10.0% EV 7.1% prior revised from 7.0% Imports YY 15.0% EV 11.6% prior revised from 11.9% 2001 IE Ireland AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 57.3 prior 2030 JP Japan AUG Final PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 46.6 Prelim 2030 KR South Korea AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 46.9 prior 2030 TW Taiwan AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 50.6 prior 2030 ID Indonesia AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 46.9 prior 2030 PH Philippines AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 48.4 prior 2030 TH Thailand AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 45.9 prior 2030 Malaysia AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 50.0 prior 2030 VN Vietnam AUG PMI Manufacturing No ESTV 47.6 prior 2130 Australia September Building Approvals 1.0% EV 4.9% prior 2130 Australia July Private Sector Houses No ESTV 5.7%. Prior 2130 Australia Q2 Current Account Balance $13.0 BV $8.4 B prior 2145 CN China AUG Cakes in China PMI Manufacturing 52.5 EV 52.8 prior 2330 HK Hong Kong to sell 3-month, 6-month and 12-month bills 2335 JP Japan to sell 10-year JGB bonds. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me mt5.expert.advisors.